through winning and losing. But performance to me isn't about winning or losing, because in terms of it's literally about doing the best you can yourself. Okay, so if you're a person who's playing on the under 16 squad and your aim is to get it's your maximum to get on that squad, that's the best performance you can make. Okay, if your aim is to be the best player and then go on and push on a minor at the senior level, that's your aim, and then to push on even further. But it depends on what level you can do. And if we use microcosm of winning and losing, it's too small of an element. If I look back at my own career, and I was lucky enough to play from my 2003 to right up to 2019. If I look at my own career and we get to All-Ireland finals, and if I look at that just career about Dublin winning 5 in a row and us not losing any, that would nearly put my whole kind of, I suppose, playing from into being a failure. And I don't look at it like that at all. I look at it as I seen lads who literally maxed themselves out, being the best they could be, and we got to where we got to. We were lucky enough to play Fermanagh in 2004 in an All-Ireland semi-final. And that was a great Fermanagh team who absolutely maxed it out with a small population, got to as far at the level they could have got to. They could have bet Mayo on the first, bet Mayo on the second day, and could have got to an All-Ireland final, but maxed their potential out to the best of their ability. And that's all we're asking. Fermanagh, Mayo, anywhere else, all we're asking for you is to try to give yourselves the best opportunity to get to where you can get to, where it's possible for you to get to. Sean, were you asking me a question there about the club side of things?
Yeah, Andy, I suppose, again, I'd always like to know where did the love that you have, it's obvious you have such a love for the GAA, where did it all begin for you, and, you know, where did the passion and drive really start for you? You know, and how did you get to where you were?
I was very lucky. I was very lucky. I was brought up in a county in a town called Balladreen on the Mayo-Roscommon border. Politically, we're in Roscommon. Football-wise, we're in Mayo. So it was a really kind of tight place. But the estate we lived in was just football mad. And I didn't come from a football house, and most certainly didn't come from a football house. But when we were growing up, we literally got our group of lads, my age group, literally got the best amount of coaching we could possibly get. We had a guy in our club called Brian Tansey, who was an underage coach, never moved from the under 10 team, was always under 10 coach, and he used to have 60 kids there between the ages of 5 and 10. Now I'm coaching under 6s at the minute in our club, and like if we have 30 fellas there, I have 4 coaches running around helping me. This man used to do it himself, and he did it for 20, 30 years, and he used to bring us all around the country at community games, under 10 for Bala, and doing everything like that. Then when we played handball, our town was a big handball town, like the Irish handball. And we had a guy called John Gaffney, who luckily came from Sligo, lived in Dunmore, but for some reason, right in the middle of where he lived and where he came from, he set up a garage in town and was just a Hall of Fame handball coach. And I had him from when I was 6 years of age, right through to when I finished up playing handball at 15 or 16. And then right through my school years from the year 2000, right to when did I finish school? Oh no, sorry, right from 96 to 2001, we had John O'Mahony in our school, and John O'Mahony at that time was the best coach in Ireland. He won the All-Ireland with 98, brought them to an All-Ireland final in 2000, and won it in 2001. And I had that influence on my career right through to that. So to me, my father wasn't much into the football, but I had 3 father figures that brought me right through, and they were just coaches from my club and people who put time and effort into ourselves. And I suppose I'm moving into the coaching world now, and I love coaching, and my love for coaching comes from them 3 men. So I kind of owe a lot to them. Now, in terms of the football itself, so I was an underachieving under 16, made the squad. We played, our competition used to be called the Ted Webb competition, where Donegal used to come down and play with us. And I was an under 16, came on in the Ted Webb final. That's the height of it for me. I did 2 years at minor, didn't really start in any of them years of minor. And then between minor and under 21, 2 of my best friends, my brother-in-law actually, Stephen Drake, and another best friend of ours, Sean Mangan, 2 very talented lads, were called straight into the under 21 squad for minor. And if I'm being honest, a tiny bit of jealousy hit me. So I was thinking, if these 2 guys can do it, why can't I get to that level? So I literally trained 2 times a day, probably every day for a year, which was probably over the top. And I just kind of, all of a sudden, my game just started to develop and move. And all of a sudden, and then I suppose 3 or 4 years later, I was up and I remember the shot in the last shot of the game to beat us in the first game. I was the person that gave away the ball 3 or 4 years later. That Fermanagh probably should have been in the All-Ireland semi-final. But that's the way things go. But it was all through really good coaching when I was a young fella. My dad wasn't into football. He wasn't that, like, he wasn't into football. But I had 3 huge influences on my career. And that's what I love about coaching. I think you can really help a guy get to their potential. And I think them lifelong lessons move right through your life, right through when you're going through work, football, and I suppose I'm a parent now, and right through parenting as well.
Just on that, Andy, you talked about probably, a handball coach, and you being in the sport environment now and probably getting into coaching. What way was the argument about early specialisation and, not specialising early in sport? Where do you stand on that? From, I suppose, these boys are the 16, 17 years of age now. What's your take on it?
Yeah, well, I think our job as coaches is to make it as easy as possible for these lads to compete in sports. And when it gets to 16, 17, 18, then you need to make a decision. I didn't make a decision myself until I was 19. I was playing a decent level of soccer. And then John Moran actually rang me. I quit the soccer and went off playing Gaelic. And that was the last time I actually ever played soccer. It was 2003. And it was just from that phone call from John Moran. But what sport gives you, it gives you a different viewpoint. So if I'm 6'4" and I'm playing a physically demanding sport like Gaelic football, and it's too easy for me at 14, 15, 16, it's too easy for me. All of a sudden, that's great. I can use them physical attributes, we can go, right? But then if I go playing soccer, which is a technical sport where you have to use your feet and tactical and you have to move, then you're using different skills. So when you then play Gaelic, then when you go back playing Gaelic, you can use them skills playing Gaelic as well. If I'm looking at, then as well, you mightn't be the best player on the team. So you're now visualizing something else as well, where you're the top man at the Gaelic, okay? You're the top man at the Gaelic, you're the main man, everything is zoomed in around you. But then you have to go playing soccer, basketball, rugby, where you might be just that bit part player. And when you move through the ages in Gaelic football, you go from minor to 21s. How many players do we lose there? Because they're just not used to being a sub. Sometimes you just have to do your apprenticeship and move through the ages. And I think playing out your age in Gaelic football, maybe a year or two above, but also playing different sports gives you that perspective of playing different games as well. Just, yes, need to show the importance of Gaelic football and why we need to train and why, but also need to give freedom to players to be able to play different sports as well, because it helps your skill set. As an inside forward, I suppose, I was never a Gooch Cooper. I was never a Bernard Brogan. Any of these, even a Killian O'Connor, they were top class finishers, poachers, assassins. They'd take people out. My job was movement, ball winning, laying it off, getting us into good positions. And to be honest, lads, when I look at a Gaelic football field, I think through my soccer days. Like I still see soccer every time I see something where people move, and that was all through the coaching I got playing soccer. And I think it just gives you such an element. You see everyone now bringing basketball into it. You see discipline coaches coming into it. I don't fully agree with that either, if I'm being honest, but you can see a different kind of sports coming into it: rugby, Gaelic football, and soccer. And if you look through the Mayo setup, Lee Keegan was the best player I ever played with for Mayo. Just gifted individual. Connacht, like, were mad for him to go playing rugby. Like, literally would have chopped off Donny Vaughan, scrum half in rugby. Colin Boyle only played Gaelic football, nothing else. Don't let him tell you any different. He fancies himself as a bit of a soccer player, but no. But the likes of Killian all played different sports. Aidan played basketball. Barry Moran played basketball. Robbie Henley, all these guys. Keith Higgins, his jewels were like Keith could have played soccer, hurling, Gaelic football at a high level. So they all use cross sports. And I think it's such a huge benefit for young people to do it. And even if you look at handball, when you're playing singles in handball and you're one-on-one in the court, there's no one there to help you. You do whatever you want. When you're getting humiliated, when you're winning, you're winning. When you're in a tight game, you're in a tight game. That gets a bit of, Joe, there's a bit of soul in that. There's a bit of, you have to get to the bottom of your stomach in that situation. And to me, that's just a huge learning. And I really, like, you see it in his training. Them swimmers are up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They're training. Like Cohen, you can't put anything in front of him that's going to phase him.
Excellent. Just on that, Andy, one of the participants asking there, you talk about different sports. Did you play different positions for Mayo or for the club, or have you found that beneficial?
Yeah, I was. I'll tell you, I was a left half back all my young age. Like, I was full back, left half back, and playing in all them different positions. But then when I played a year up or 2 years up, I remember you were allowed play maybe 3 years up. We won't say that too loud, but you were allowed. So I used to come on at corner forward, or I used to play in goals for that team too. So it gives you a kind of a different feel for different positions going up. So I was always kind of going around it. In soccer, I was always centre midfield. Then, like, the handball side of it, and golf and all that, you're always kind of doing different elements. But in Gaelic football, I always played different positions. Like, I went into the under-16s Mayo as a left half back or right half back. And my brother-in-law, Stephen Drake, went in as a centre forward. He ended up playing centre back, and I ended up coming on as a corner forward. So it's just amazing how it changes and moves. When we're in school, then John O'Mahony, for the lads that don't know him, just a great individual. But for our era, he was the one that was kind of challenging the guys from the north, and there in challenging the Kerrys. Then later on in that decade, he was just a brilliant guy, and is still a good mentor to me. But he moved me from left half back on our senior schools team to midfield. And that's when I kind of started pushing up, and which was funny. The only time I ever played wing back for Mayo, it was O'Mahony that pulled me back to left half back in 2009. So there was always a kind of a twist there to move. Now, my problem was in the half back line was when the game got more athletic, I didn't have the athletic capability. I was more of a playmaker, left or right half back, and you'd have to have a real specific game plan to allow me to play in that position. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And I remember Tommy Lyons, lads. Tommy Lyons, who used to be over Dublin, okay? You remember Tommy? He used to do a thing with the Dublin under-21s at the time, and they won the All-Ireland at the time, back in the early 2000s. He used to, in challenge matches, he used to switch them around. So the backs used to have to play in the forwards, and the forwards had to play in the backs. So it was just a little lesson to the backs, or to the forwards, the work rate that headed them to keep the ball away from them, you know? So I used to always kind of remember that little throw that he used to do in the game. So maybe that's something we can bring into our kind of development and little things. And I see forwards now that play inside when they're kids and they go to senior and they don't fully understand the game. They've relied on their pace, they've relied on everything, but they don't understand the ball winning, where you need to move, how you need to get around it. And what's great for them is just to get them out the field, out to a 12, out to a midfield, even at a 7 at a time, and let them see, okay, right, 7 of the ball there, then they can visualize where the 7 is actually looking to kick the ball, and then they need to get to that little position. So I think it's a good thing to try, but I would strongly encourage players here, Joe, move around. There's some David Cliffords, of course there is, that will naturally play full forward all his life. We had it in Conor Mortimer and Killian and these guys, but the likes of the majority of us lads, the guys that I would call the mere mortals, move around, learn the game, see where you need to play, and see where it goes.
Thanks for that, Andy. I do have a right few questions here, but unless Owen, do you want to ask, or Teresa, when I have you there, because in fairness to you,
Sean, I just said something on that last one.
Yes.
Right? Really good question, the position side of it, because if you look at soccer now, right? So the likes of Ashley Cole and an awful lot of these guys now, they're finding themselves at left wing back and right wing back and all these different positions. All started, it's unbelievable the amount of them that started as strikers in the youth system in all these clubs. And what they're doing now, they're finding positions that they understand and they're making it. So Ashley Cole, for instance, who was probably the best left back in Premiership history, like, he started as a striker in Arsenal. And then he found himself into left back, a position that he did. So it gives a guy such an opportunity to be irreplaceable on the team.
Andy makes a great point. I know in the AFL, especially when the Irish guys first go over there, the first year they usually spend, so if you're a forward, they usually play them in full back, because their whole philosophy is, if you can understand what it is to be a defender and try and defend someone, you're going to be much stronger as a forward. You're going to understand how it is to make space and get away from your man. So that's a brilliant point. Like, and I know a good few lads that would have started out in the defence and they all move in the corner forward and they've great movement because they know what it is to spend that time in defence. So it's definitely worth taking on board there, especially a few of the young lads, is to be a better forward, maybe spend a bit of time in the defence and see how it is to work someone. You pick up brilliant wee tips there to just get away from boys and stuff.
It's a great point, Owen. What a forward gives you, it's at number 5 or number 7. So particularly in Mayo, if you think about the Mayo forward, the backline, we Boyle, Keegan, Vaughan. Now you have Paddy Durcan. None of them are kickers, right? They were never kickers. They were always athletic-driven players driving through. Obviously, with Leroy and Lee Keegan and Paddy Durcan, when they get in front of goal, they can finish as well. But like in playmaking, there's definitely room for a playmaking player at 7. And when you kick the ball is 50 yards away from you. Then all of a sudden you're in a defensive position anyway. So when we run the ball and we lose the ball, they're behind us. So there's definitely room. And that's what I'm saying about the thinking side of it. Think your way now at 16, 17, 18, 19 years of age. Try to start learning the game as well. And what I find really good for that, Owen, is getting out your sketch paper, right? And at 37 years of age, this is sad, lads, don't judge me on this now. Still, at this stage, I'm drawing matchstick men on the page. At this stage, I used to do in primary school, and I'm still drawing at little movements where you can go, you can get away from fellas, where the space will be. If there's a sweeper in front of you on the full back line, where now is the space? If your left half back is left-footed, where should you be running? In behind the sweeper, or you're running to the wing side so he can kick you the ball? So little things like that can really get your brain thinking, moving position and where you need to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. You were saying you went in and you took out and you started training twice a day. Is there anything in particular? Is there any training that you thought, right, this has really changed me now as a player? Is there anything that really put you on and took you right into the under-21s?
Oh yeah, it was just my speed was always been an issue all my life. Being paranoid about my speed. Like I've never been never blessed with that natural ability. Not slow, like I was never slow, but if you ran me, like I honestly, Owen, if you raced me over 20 yards now, I'd say you beat me, to be honest with you, right? But I beat you over the first 5. So I tried to absolutely maximize my first 5 yards. And I was doing plyometric. I was doing everything wrong, but it was giving me great kind of confidence in what I was what I was trying to do. Like I was just trying to get me body in front of a cornerback, where I was going to move, running across the line. So a great tip for the young lads that do play in the forward line. I used to use the 13 and the 21. I used to call them 2 train lines, 2 tracks, and you had to stay inside them. So you couldn't move outside the 21 and you had to still win the ball. So I actually developed that when I was about 18, 19 years of age. I think I was a bit obsessed with Ollie Murphy at the time. And I used to see the way he used to run flat instead of running straight out. And it kind of made my mind think. So it was that first 5 yards and then try to get my body between myself, my man, and the ball.
Oh, that's brilliant. And then just, I suppose, as you pointed out there, that you're 37 and you were up at the very, very top of your game. Is there anything that you think that has contributed to you lasting to your 37, that's prolonged your career? Some type of your training? Like I know Ryan Giggs put a lot of emphasis on the yoga and stuff like that. Pilates definitely lengthened his career. Is there any one particular part of training that you think has got you this far?
Yeah, I was very mindful of, I was very lucky. Like, okay, so I'm on about the coaches I had when I was younger, but when I was growing up, one of my best mates, who's 2 years older than me, his name is Barry Solon. He's actually, he'd be
good, very well.
Yeah, he'd be good friends with Pete as well. And he's strength and conditioning, he's head strength and conditioning coach at the Arsenal football team. So I used to be coming in with WAV and pipes as foam rollers before foam rollers were even invented. I wish I invented them myself because I'd made a fortune. So we used to be coming in with mini bands and all this. So I was always kind of ahead of that side of it through 2006, 7, 8, 9. Then when I got hurt, I was very, very fortunate that I got back, that the management team in 2015 actually picked me to come back, because to be honest with you, I was gone. My legs were gone. My body was gone. But in that time, I changed the way I used to play. So I was never a really good finisher shooter. I was good, but I was never top class. But in that time, I just nailed the shot on the turn. So there's a point against Paddy McGrath in 2013. Now, Paddy cleaned me. And we won the game easy, but he cleaned me on the day. But there's a point on that gives me more satisfaction than any other point I ever scored, because I literally I couldn't run. I shouldn't have been playing. I was only playing because I was captain, and Moran wanted to play me because he just wanted me on the field. But I just, this kick from a tight angle, the Stevie O'Neill kind of point from a tight angle. And I just kept doing that over and over again. And what that allowed me to do, just moving back into your point, to give the lads something to pick me on. So yes, I couldn't run as much as the lads. I couldn't run, but I could win the ball close to the goal, and all of a sudden I could score. So I kind of just made myself valuable enough for them to pick me. I would I think it's very important that the lads understand this. And I don't mean this, I'm not saying this to be humble or anything like that. I would call myself a very realistic person. Football is a funny game. I am telling the lads here right now that I am in no way this Gaelic footballer. What I did, right, I taught myself how to be valuable. And the amount of players that were way better than me that actually kind of failed coming up because they weren't thinking, or they weren't kind of thinking, what's next? Where can we go here? What can I do to get myself onto the team? How can I play? How do I help the team out? And stuff like that. An awful lot of them boys failed. And where I kind of just kept it going was, I just said, what am I good at? Can I bring it to the team? And does it help out the team? And once I did that, then I had the chance to be on the team. And I got a very lucky against you guys, against Fermanagh 2016. I was off the team. Rochford didn't fancy me at all. He didn't like me at all. Came on against Fermanagh. I actually won good ball. Played all right, but I took 2 wild shots, missed the 2 of them. I was so determined to get on, try to get myself back on the team. I was so disappointed I didn't make it that week and didn't get on. We snuck over the line. I think Aidan O'Shea took a bit of a dive against you, and we snuck over the line. And the next day, I had a raging row with Tony McEntee on the pitch at training. He gave out. I said, listen, I can win the ball. I said, if you want me to win the ball, I said, put me in there and play. And I just said to myself, I said, I'm not going to shoot. So all I did was win the ball, laid it off, win the ball, laid it off, win the ball, laid it off. And I was back in the team, and I probably didn't lose my position again till 2019. So what I'm saying is, you don't need to do everything for everyone. To me, you're looking out for other external factors like papers, social media, gratification from your parents or from your coaches or stuff like that. What I'm saying to the guys is, think about what you can really do well. And if that's kicking the ball from centre half back, work your socks off doing that. If that's winning the ball inside, work your socks off of that. If you're a finisher, work your socks off like that. If you're like Corrigan, a free taker, and you can do it, or Quigley or these boys, make yourself invaluable to the team, and you'll be picked over and over again. And that kind of makes it, it simplifies the game in your own head too.
Oh, that's great. That's something that me and Sean would definitely be trying to hammer home to these boys a lot of the time. As you know, as you said there, they're trying to do things. I say, win it, lay it off, run on, move on. Just do as you exactly said. Do what you're good at. Stop trying to, do what you're not good at.
What I say,
light on you.
Owen and Sean and all the other coaches that are on the call, reward that. Like, what I would say is really, really go after stuff like that. We used to call them, back in the early days, they used to be called green and red plays from Mayo. So if you made a play that made a score, like a block, an interception, or a valuable slipping a guy through the middle of the guys are rewarding that. The lads outside, they will not care what other people are saying. They'll only care what you're saying, and all of a sudden that becomes so valuable. Being a good person around the place, lads. If you're a team player, you're saying Sean and Owen there, Teresa and the guys and all the coaches there. If you're a good person around the place, you're looking out for somebody else. Away you go. And I'm with the club team here in Balladreen at the minute, and I'm trying to explain to them. We were in a situation last year against Brafey, against Aidan O'Shea's team. We were cruising. All of a sudden, one of our best players gets sent off, Keane Handley, just home from Brisbane Lions, leaves a bit on, harsh enough, but he probably deserved to get sent off. But I said to the other, so we played with kind of 4 midfielders in the middle of the pitch, right? And Handley was our legs, but the other 3 guys, one fellow was old and the other 2 fellas are just kind of old school midfielders, do you know what I mean? And I said to one of the midfielders during the week, I said, what conversation did you have when Keane got sent off? And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, did you talk, like, or did you have any sort of, and he goes, no. And I said, you were American Matty Ruan, you know, my own midfielder, so you had no plan. I said, you made no plan between the 3. And the point I'm trying to make is a little text. So if you're 2 players on your team, lads, a text, how are you doing, getting on, building that relationship. If you build a relationship off the pitch, you'll be able to ask for that little bit of help then when you get on the pitch. So, lads, I know you're from different clubs and we're all, but there's a good chance that a lot of you are going to play minor. There's a good chance a lot of you are going to play 20s. There's a good chance a lot of you end up playing senior. And if you build that relationship, that little bit of trust between you, it'll go a long way. I'll tell you a good one, right? When I got back on the team on 16, Rochford rang me. I was sitting upstairs in the bedroom and Rochford rang me and he just goes, he said, you're starting. Now, my first question to him was, who's going to do in the defending? Right? Because at that stage, I was 33, right? Okay, I couldn't run as much as the other fellas. And he said, I've it already sorted. So the guy he said was a guy called Jason Doherty. Okay? To me, Jason Doherty is the most important footballer I've ever played with, for me personally, right? And I don't mean that patronisingly or anything, right? He never won an All-Star, okay? But on our team, he was the man. He was the man, right? So if my runner back went, so if Mick Fitzsimon was the field for Dublin, I ran to the 45 and Jason Doherty went after him for me. And I marked Jason Doherty's man, which allowed me to stop the pitch, because if I went up running after him, lads, it was going to take me 5 minutes to get back up there in the field, and my job was to win the ball close to the goal. But Doherty just said to Stephen Rochford, he said, if Andy plays, I'll mark his man. Bang. He did that job for me. I ended up winning a few awards later on in the next 2 years. No one mentions Doherty, but I'll tell you something, lads, to me, the most important player I've ever played with for me. Not the best. I'm not saying he's the best player. Obviously, Lee Keegan and Kieran MacDonald and these guys would probably take it. But for me, on a personal level, I never get back in the team without Doherty doing the job for me that he did.
Else ask you a question there now, Doc. You get some questions from the lads.
No, just a few questions here, but I think that was a very important point there, Handy made. It's probably just an understanding of your teammates on and off the field and developing that trust, Andy, would it be right in saying? You know, and the big point I take away of that is every player knowing their strengths and weaknesses. I think it's a massive thing, because a lot of players go on the field and they try and do X, Y, and Z that they're maybe not just capable of, but they could excel at the other things, and it's important to understand that, and players that you play with understanding. But I suppose maybe I'm wrong, Andy, but it goes back to coaching, especially at this age group at 16 and 17, and coaches actually coaching players. You talk about running the tram lines or running between the lines. Like, in terms of your coaching and for the coaches that are on this session, you know, what advice would you give them? Because at times I see we gauge it on winning trophies, winning medals in terms of being a successful coach. What in your eyes is a successful coach, I suppose, what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, it's the most important question. A successful coach to me is just getting the best out of your team, making an enjoyable atmosphere within a group. And people think this enjoyment thing has been taken totally out of context. I know if one knows Pete, I know he probably agrees with me on this one, right? But people think enjoyment is bringing fellas out for the day, or, you know, they're bonuses. Enjoyment is working as hard as you can, getting better. And fellas love doing that in an atmosphere where they know they're learning and they trust the people that are looking after them. And I think if you can create that atmosphere, you're absolutely laughing. Lads, none of us here, any of the coaches that are on this, none of us have all the answers. Believe me, we don't have all the answers. If we did, you know, we'd be like, where would we be? But we can definitely help out somebody. And I think it was a John Wooden book, and the guys wouldn't know John Wooden, but you guys would know him as a coach for UCLA. He used to say the parents used to come in and give out to him that his kid is just after getting a C grade in an exam. But like, if the kid was only capable of, if he brought himself from a D to a C, he's excelled, he's done brilliant. So what we're saying there, Sean, and I think your point is great, the athletic wing forward. But if you go in and ask him to run the line and to win the ball at centre forward and lay it through the channel, he's not going to be able to do that. But if you say to the athletic wing forward, now listen, Tom, every time Andy's man goes up, you need to track him for Andy to be able to stay close to the goal. And he knows he's doing an invaluable job to the team. Magic. Joe, all of a sudden, he gets the trust of the players. All the players come in on him, and he's a serious, serious athlete. The other thing what Owen mentioned was about the Australian rules. The lads go to Australian rules, and they always play wing back or full back. They know that they can trust them, and you know that they know the game and they can see it and what they're doing and get them within the culture. Sometimes when you're up in the full forward line, it's an isolated position. You don't get involved, and you have to stay cool and all this. But if you're playing at a 5 or a 7, even at Australian rules, like you have a massive chance of getting involved in the whole thing, you know. So you're getting an importance within the group, and that's massive. And then the last thing I would say to that is that the lads that are on this, okay, that the lads, I know there's an inside forward here that does the majority of the scoring. I know there is, right? That's fine. He's the free taker. He probably kicks 2 or 3 from play, maybe a goal. So he finishes up 1-1-8, 1-9. Class player. We need you so badly. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you come out from your score and we'll say Donncha Morris, I can see his the name there. If Donncha runs 30 yards, gives you a hand pass, you kick it over there, a little point to Donncha just to acknowledge that he's done something good for you. Magic. You know it in soccer. 2-on-1 on the keeper. Someone lays a goal, your man taps it in, he goes off celebrating by himself. You know what you're thinking about him. Just don't do that. Go and thank the guy for giving you the ball. It makes him feel important, and it brings the whole team together. I think it's a huge element, Sean.
Brilliant, Andy. Just on Donncha Morris, he has a question for you. Donncha wants to know, he said, phone's going off. He says, for Andy, is that he had such a long career, how did you stay motivated and determined the whole way through it?
It was very easy for me, right? Firstly, I absolutely loved the game. I spent a year in Jordanstown in 2008. I loved it because ye-bucks are mad about football. Like it was just brilliant. Lived beside Pete Donnelly, who the guys know. Lived with Carl Lacey, Barry Junyon, and it was football mad. So I just loved the game anyway. Okay, and it's probably a game that I'll stay in till the day I can't stay in it anymore. You know, so I love it. But the other thing was I was struck with really good influences, Donncha. I found a wife who was stone mad with football, who didn't mind me, gone 5, 6, 7 days of the week. Knew it was so important to me that we had to fit our life around it as well. So the influence is massive. And my guys were all kind of involved in sport, all involved in football. Our club team loved the game as well. They were challenging for county titles at the time. But the most important thing was probably it was probably my wife, because she allowed me to do it. Even when we had our little child, Charlotte, in 2014, she didn't mind me going on trips, going away for weekends and stuff like that. So, in light of it, it definitely makes it easier to stick in the game as long as I did. If I ask just a question there, Sean, and any of the lads can come in. I want one of you coming in now, lads. Don't let me pick one of you. But if you were going to explain, right, why the Gooch was so good, right? So, Donncha, you can come in here now that you're on the ball. So take yourself off mute there for a second.
Right.
Right, Donncha boy, good lad. You got nailed there. If you were going to explain to me, so the Gooch was one of the best players that ever played the game, right? While he was on the pitch, what was his best attribute?
Scoring probably.
Yeah, 100%. Second top scorer of all time. 2 feet or 1?
2.
Yeah. So thanks, Donegal. That's all I need from you. Thanks, buddy. It's brilliant because everyone looks at the Gooch and they think about his scoring rate and his right foot and his left foot. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Lads, what made the Gooch so good was his hands. He had the most beautiful hands that ever lived. He could catch the ball and he could have the ball outside his body all the time. And that was work when he was a kid, putting the ball against the wall, having 2 balls in his hand, practicing his right and left hand. But the Gooch used to catch the ball on the floor. And when he used to come up, the ball was out so far that the defender couldn't get near him. So that gave him room to swing his right. It gave him room to swing his left. So everyone looks at the right and left foot, and rightly so. They're outrageous play, right? But his hands, and I don't mean his hands high catching or anything like that. I mean hands where he used to position the ball away from his body. And it just gave him so much time and didn't have it stuck in here. If you're a forward and you're relying on the ball being in your chest, that corner back, Sean Marty Lockhart's and these guys are going to come in, Barry Owens, they're going to come in and knock that ball away from you. If you can catch the ball out from your body like that, you're all of a sudden buying seconds for yourself. And then if you're a good shooter, you've got a foot and a half on your man. Clifford, when he plays, lads, to me, Clifford is going to be the best that we've seen. If he keeps going his progression that he's going to. But look at his hands. Look at his hands. His hands are out away from his body all the time. So when you're practicing against the wall with your ball, and don't kill your practice, get your right and left hand, but don't let that ball near your body. Catch it. Have the confidence to catch it out away from your chest so you're buying time for your shot. Sorry, Sean, go on.
Oh, that's perfect. Good man, Donegal. Thanks for that there. There's a few more. Another one from actually a nephew from lad you probably played again a few times, Marty McGrath. Keilcha wants to know. Yeah, not a bad one, that. Keilcha wants to know how do you maintain your elite performance over the whole year?
Yeah, I think there's McGraths living in my town of Balladreen. I don't know if they're related. They're definitely related to Marty, but it might be outside the family. But there's McGraths living down in Balladreen for the last 20 or 30 years. But how do you keep your elite performance? Just consistency, lads. It absolutely is consistency. Set your plan. Do what you do. Work away on it. What are you trying to... Don't try to force something. Don't do 7 days of the week, 1 week, 2 days the next week. Have your plan, set it out, where you're going to go do your shooting, do the things you enjoy. I find at this stage, lads, and I'm finished, I'm playing 1 more year of club football, but even during this, going to the pitch shooting, I find it a form of headspace that I can't get anywhere else, even this, just to keep myself going. So it's consistent. And what I mean by consistency is in your sleep, have a consistent sleep pattern in 2 one night, 10 the next night, and stuff like that, because you can't get any consistency in your plan. I know it's going to happen every now and then, but try to get it back consistent when you can. Your food, what you're taking into your body was huge for me in terms of I had certain things that really affected me, particularly going into big games with, we'll say it, with a bit of irritable bowel and stuff like that, because once I used to get a bit nervous, this is what used to happen. So I used to be consistent in what I used to eat. Your hydration, taking it into you. Again, the influences that are coming to your head. Stay away from as much from social media as you can in terms of football, what people think you. So don't let people get inside your head with bad opinions. All opinions don't matter. I often wrote about my parents, because my parents love me absolutely more than anything, right? But they didn't know anything about football, so I kept away from them. When it came to football, I didn't ask their opinion, because even though they were well-intentioned, they didn't actually know what they were talking about. They didn't know what the likes of Sean, Owen, Teresa were trying to tell you in the match. They didn't know the game plan. They didn't understand it. So the better I got at keeping away from the influences, the easier the consistent performance throughout the year. Doing the stuff you really like, sticking to the people that really like, that are a positive influence in you, and then your sleep and your food, keeping them as consistent as we can. And lads, on that, you're going to have a bad game. You are going to go through a bad stage of form. So don't think nobody goes through a bad stage of form. Everyone goes through a bad stage of form. Marty McGrath, Barry Owens, Little, Maguire, all these boys went through bad state of form. Okay, but what it is you will come out of it. Work on little ways that you could do it. I always found writing stuff down helped me, but that's when I got a bit older. Okay, but just go through your little processes all the time and do what's good for you.
I might jump in there. Sorry, Sean. Andy, I suppose you're talking from your very early days of primary school and having key influencers, John O'Mahony and different coaches and I suppose role models there. But you also sound like there was a lot, you were very strong-minded on what you wanted to do or what you needed to do to get there. I suppose the whole mindset thing, you know, maybe you weren't making the team at 16, 17, 18, but you were prepared to work on your game and that. But is there anything around the whole mindset that you focused on, or how did you manage to focus yourself to head down here?
Great question, Teresa, because sometimes when I'm talking about it, it sounds like I always had it. Absolutely not. I went down to Tralee in college when I first left school. I came back 2 stone heavier than I went down, quit after 2 months, had to get myself home. Football career wasn't going anywhere. So it wasn't always there. As I said there I wouldn't call it jealousy. I wouldn't say I was jealous of my 2 mates, but I was definitely envious of where they got to. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we're awful PC in the way we want to say things now. But I was definitely envious of the 2 lads. I definitely wanted to go and play. Once I seen them doing it, it's like Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile. Once they did it, I knew then I could do it. So it was how I got there and what could I do different than them. I literally quit college and I just went training. And then I would say, Teresa, my mindset got on my way in football till about 2011. So at that stage, I was 27 years of age. And I'd say it got on my way. And I'll explain that now in a second. Like, I was a very good league footballer. I used to play really well in the league. I did very well coming on off the Tynes, playing for my own championship. But I hadn't really performed that well in Croke Park up to 2011. And the reason for that was I was too fixated on I came from a house where, again, I came from a brilliant house. I don't want to say anything negative, but we were very like, Joe, what did you score? And I'd say I scored 2 points. And then they'd ask me, what did Mangan score? And I'd say he scored 5. And they'd be like, why didn't you score? So my mindset was set on nearly what other people were thinking of me. What was the perception away from me? So once I said, when I get back to Croke Park, I said, this is going to be a kind of an act for myself. So I kind of said, right, what am I going to do? I'd pretend some days that I was, like a Bernard Brogan or a Gooch. What would they do in that situation? Where would they move? How would they get around it? And then all around that. And in 2012, sorry, Teresa, I'm dragging this out now, but in 2012, then I got injured. I broke my leg, I broke my leg in 11. I did my cruciate in 12. And in 13, I came back from doing my cruciate and it hurt me back as well. I actually could still perform. I was operating off about 55 or 60%, but I could still perform. I was scoring a few points here and there, coming on off the bench, doing okay. And then I thought to myself, I said, right, okay, I'm operating off 50 or 60% here. I can still score a point or 2. If I get my body back right, all of a sudden then I can move. But I was 31 years of age. This mindset thing to me is a work in progress. I'm telling you, as coaches, you're still working on it. You're going to go coaching when you go back. We're going to be gung-ho, every one of us, and we're going to make 1,000 mistakes. We're going to make so many. And the way we do it is just little improvements. So we just took it, little improvements. How do we get a tiny bit better? If you can perform like this, why can't you perform like, if you can perform like this injured, what can you do if you're not injured? And how do I get there? So I had little processes. I dealt with my nerves. Nerves were a big issue for me in terms of not really getting sick nervous, but nearly trying to be too cool to be nervous, if you know what I mean. Once I actually admitted, geez, I'm nervous here, and I dealt with it, bang, I used it as adrenaline, I could do it. And then there was little things like that, reading books, all that kind of helped me. Yes, I at a high level of mentality to get myself right, but I was a thinker. And when I could stop myself thinking and maybe put myself into someone else's body, I don't know. How can I make that easier? That's a bit of around the house. Okay, I'll tell you a good one. 2011, my wife brought me to a concert. She brought me to a Take That concert in Croke Park. Didn't want to go. How I agreed to go, I do not know. But I remember looking, and the boys don't even know who Take That is. There's this little fella in it called Mark Owen, right? Like, he's not even that talented, lads, to be honest with you. But he was dancing and singing in front of 80,000 people in Croke Park. And I was sitting down, everyone else was standing up. I was sitting down, I was looking at this crowd. And I said, this fella is having the time of his life. And I kind of just made myself think, the next time I get back here now, I'm going to have the time of my life. And I wrote it down, and I just kept reminding myself this. Next time I come back here, I'm going to show it off. I'm going to have the time of my life. I'm going to do my job. And all of a sudden, I kind of took myself out of my own thought process, and then I could lead into that. So I hope that explains it. But it was definitely a stage thing. And what I'm saying to the lads is, you could go through the same thing. We want fellas to be really good at 21, 22 years of age. It might take them until they're 26 to be that good. So give them time, give them space, let them develop, let them get better along the way. And then when they're 25, let them kind of explode onto the scene if that's their time. Other fellas will be good enough to do that at 19, 20, 21 years of age. For me, I was definitely a later developer. That was about a 10-minute answer.
Spot on.
Brilliant, Andy. Just on that, Andy, I had a question here from one of the young lads, and we've had an answer from a past presenter, and I just would like to get your take on it. What do you feel is the best attribute to excel at the top level? What do you think? Is it a physical attribute? Is it a mental attribute? What in your opinion would it be?
Well, okay, so I'm going to go around the houses on this too. Okay, so if we're looking at physical attributes, right? For me, Lee Keegan had the best physical attributes I've ever seen a footballer had. He could play, he could run, he was pig strong, he was aggressive, he had everything you could do to be. But I'll tell you something, lads, he had some mentality. Nothing fazed him, nothing went in his way. He just went and he just went, like he just could go, turn up that morning, nearly be asleep in the bed, gel the hair up and come back and he's ready to play. It was that simple. His mentality was brilliant, but he trained, lads. Even if you follow him on that app now called Strava, like he's 32, 33 now, you'd still see him doing 10Ks in ridiculous times. He trained and he trained and he trained. And that's what he got his confidence from. But it's not that easy for everyone. Like, some fellas have natural attributes. Keith Higgins has a natural attribute in pace. Aidan O'Shea had a natural attribute in size. People have natural things that come to them. The likes of myself I was average height, average speed, average everything. So to me, your mindset is 100% the key thing. Lads, even from my club, there's been so many talented players I have seen just drift off into the sunset without playing for my own, maybe for a game or two and not making it. Way better players to me. But in around the dressing room, not good influences. Not looking after their body when they're away from training. Not doing the work away from training. So, I mean, going to the pitch, absolutely excelling going to the pitch. Not doing your video analysis, not looking at your little players, like when you're going to look at the championship later on this year. Who do you admire? Who do you like? Can you copy Anthony off them? So, like, we all seen The Last Dance, didn't we? So, everyone came out from that thinking, oh, geez, Michael Jordan, he was lunatic. He shouted and roared at all his trainers. He was the best player that ever lived. Very few took from that he was the hardest working person in that team. He won the runs. He did the work. He did the hours in the gym. So what I'd love the young fellas to be looking at is, what work did he do? Not the shouting and roaring, not what he did, not the Roy Keane shouting and roaring. What did Roy Keane do around training? How did he get himself into physical shape? And away we go. And that is complete and utter mindset. It's complete and utter mindset. You have to have the mindset to train. You have to have the want to do it. Lads, don't get me wrong. And this is the God's honest truth. You look outside, you see the rain and the wet. Roy Keane, Stephen Roach, Sean Kelly, any of them guys, Marty McGrath, Barry Owens, all them great players that played for yourselves. They all looked and they go, I don't want to do this today. But they all went. They all went. Just get yourself out the door. Make yourself a plan. Get to the pitch. The confidence, the drive you get from doing that is just remarkable. And if you use a tiny bit of jealousy, or you use a tiny bit of envious, or you use a tiny bit of whatever you can drag to make yourself a tiny bit better, that's what you need to do. But it's number one, the mindset has to be right. Yes, you can have an attribute, but if you're not trying to help out the team, and you're not trying to develop the culture of the team, you're not trying to help out your body beside you, you're going to be an island and you're not going to make it anyway.
Brilliant answer, Andy. Thanks a million. Just before, I have a few questions here from the lads. I'll be greedy and ask one myself, because these are young lads, they're in academies, and sometimes you often hear egos can develop and all that there crack. What did you feel your role was returning to your club? You know, what did you feel leaving, say, the county setup, going back to your club? What did you feel your role was when you returned to your club?
Yeah, like from when I retired or when I was playing?
I suppose both. Like, did you feel a duty there to make those better around you? You know, help your teammates? Did you feel that sort of bonus upon you, or maybe you didn't?
And like, no, listen, lads, I see, you don't want to be, sorry, now I'm going to curse, but you don't want to be a bullshitter here either. But my, like, Balladrina probably means too much to me, to be honest with you. I might be the right person to ask about this. We've kind of, we developed the club over a number of years. We developed lots of great players. We're a little club, as I said, we in North Roscommon, we play our football in Mayo. It's a strange little town. We're all divided. And for some strange reason, when it comes to football, we all come together. Since the year 1983, I think, we've always had some player on the county team. So I retired there last year, and we got a young fella in this year. So that kind of run has always gone. And we're a town of about 1,500 people. An awful lot of foreign nationals in the town. Some of them have been really good and played with us. But an awful lot of them cultures don't play. So some of that 1,500 would have no interest in Gaelic football at all. So we have to kind of fight for kind of every inch. So we've always put it back in the club. And the reason for that, honestly, lads, and I have to say it, is the influences we got throughout our years. Like, if you look at what John O'Mahony's done to our team, Michael Solon and John Ginty, who were the managers of the under-21 team that won the 2016 All-Ireland final for Mayo, they're both my club, and they're both disciples of John O'Mahony. Barry Solon will be a disciple of John O'Mahony. A guy who runs Barrettstown in Kildare, the kids camp. He's the head guy in it. He'd be a disciple. So an awful lot of fellas have went an awful lot of routes to help people, in that kind of helping role. And that's all because of the influences we got. We were literally the most blessed generation of people that ever came through Balladrine, because we got such good, stable coaches who kind of helped us through all that. And you can see it from where all the guys have kind of went and helped. So my role within the club is to keep on what they've done for us. And listen, I'm very honored to it. Like, as a player, I suppose I came back, never missed a game really, did all that sort of stuff. But now, since I left, I'm coaching on the sixes and I'm coaching the seniors. So yeah, I think you can see the cycle it's kind of going. So I kind of, I think you don't have a choice around our town just to get involved,
Brilliant. Andy, just a few questions from the coaches. Have you any tips for young lads, old lads? I'm still running around at 37. I could do with a bit of help in this area. Finishing in front of goal. Any tips?
It's, lads, I've never seen a trick that is so about your head number one, but practice number two, and they all fit in together. The more practice you do in that particular skill, the more confident you're going to go. Feel the ball. What part of your foot does that ball, like when you hit one over the black spot, right, Sean? When you hit one over the black spot, right? Which part of your foot does it hit? Do you know? Feel the shot. Like don't just kick the ball and go, oh, geez, that was a nice shot. Which part of your foot did it hit? How did you do it? Where did you do it different? Like, we all kind of train, the word train, but do we practice? And what I mean by practice is do we actually know what we're trying to do? So as a young fella, if you're 14, 15, 16 years of age here, you don't get away here. Are you actually practicing? Are you trying to get better? And the way you get better is actually learn what you're doing. So which part of the foot are you hitting? Where's your body shape when you're kicking the ball? Where's that shoulder facing the left shoulder? All them little things. Where's your chest? Are you tucked in over the ball, or have you a big high chest? You know, little things like that. And that all comes from practicing. And lads, not going to the pitch in twos. That's going to the pitch in ones and feeling and hearing and listening to the sounds of where it's going. Good example of that, lads. And I'm 99% sure this story is true, right? So Cillian O'Connor, who's the top scorer of all time in the championship. Okay, we're playing in 2010. We've no free taker. Okay, so Conor Mortimer's in and out of the team with no free taker. Alan Dillon's taking frees, not a natural free taker. And at times I have to take a few frees and stuff like that, which is not a good thing at all. Okay. And Cillian is in school, he's in St. George's, and a teacher goes to him, he goes, Cillian, and he wasn't a free taker at the time. He said, there's a huge opportunity here. He said, you're going to be in the Mayo senior squad soon. He said, they need a free taker. So Cillian got a bag of balls and he went. And he to this day, he hasn't stopped. Top scorer again this year in the championship. He just went and practiced. Not a free taker at the time. So he's 16 now, lads, or 17, same age as he. He puts the bag of balls on his back. He gets out onto the pitch and he starts practicing. That's 2011 he made his debut. He was still in school. So 10 years later, he's the top scorer of all time in the championship, and he's 28 years of age.
Unreal. And to follow on from that, have you any tips for how forward could shake off defenders? Reasonably good at getting out in front, winning ball, like?
Okay, so as a coach, right, the worst thing you can say to a forward is get out in front, right? And I'd say that in the right way. Of course, there's a time that you need to show, right? But where's the defender's eyes? A defender's eyes are in the front of his head, right? So get in behind him. Get in behind his blind spot, move in behind him, get right and left in behind him, see where he's going, get him shifting. If he's standing with his hand, so if I'm marking, let's say, Donald Vaughan, right? And a Donald Vaughan is faster than me, and he's standing with his hand on my hip, okay? He's standing with my hand on my hip, and I'm in front of him, and there's a ball that's coming, and there's 40 yards of space in front of me. I'm not winning that ball because he's faster than me. He's only a half yard behind me. Okay, so I need to lose him before the ball goes. So get in behind his eyes, get in behind his head so his eyes can't see, and let him lose you for a second, gain a half yard, and work on the right way. Okay, that's number one. Second little tip was Donny Buckley used to have one, lads, which was really good statement. He used to say, run away to come back. So you're in the full forward position. You want to win the ball in the full forward position. How do you get back in there? You run away to come back into that position. Okay, so you have to bring your man for a gallop to get back into that position so that you can lose him. Okay, and the third one, lads, absolutely the most important thing that you could do is know your players, right? So again, we look at it, left half back, if he's right-footed, he doesn't want to kick that left foot up the line. So if you show for that left foot up the line, he's not going to kick it to you. He's going to turn back in on his right foot, get to the sideline, move back in. That means you know your player. You know he's right-footed. Does he like kicking with the outside of his foot, the inside of his foot? Where does he like to kick the ball? Move into them positions. Leave the spaces in there. If you have a left footer coming up the left wing, you know he wants to curl that ball up the line. Bump into your man. Get that space out in front, inside, okay? You have a midfielder who likes taking a play, right? Shouldn't have. The guys are telling him, stop taking a play, will ya? Okay, stop taking a play. But he likes taking a play. If you make the run while he's just about to take the play, that's your fault. Wait till he takes the play, know what foot he's going to kick it with, then move into that position. Okay, so it's knowing your players. Aidan O'Shea, right? Shouldn't be telling you this, but anyway, gets the ball, turns left. So he turns onto his left foot. Now, if I make that run to my right-hand side, I know he's not going to kick it, because what does Aidan O'Shea always do when he gets the ball? He dummies back onto his right, doesn't he? So he does. You can see him. He dummies back onto his right, and then he comes back onto his left. So he comes back onto the second motion. So I need to know, right, wait, run to the, like, pretend that you're going to go to the opposite side, and then leave the body shape open for when he comes back. Okay, Diarmuid O'Connor, for example, outside the right foot merchant, he will put it into your breadbasket, make the run so that he can kick that outside the footer to you. Okay, so knowing your players is the absolutely key thing to do. If you know your players, think about it. If you're marking a defender for Fermanagh and he's on you now, right, or she's on you, okay, you know your midfielder who you've trained with for 6 months, or you should know your midfielder better than that defender knows you. So you know where he's kicking the ball. So where do you move for the ball? So an awful lot of it gets lost in the delivery from the midfield line. The inside forward should absolutely try to learn what them guys can give. What's his favourite kick? Inside the right foot, outside the left. How does he like to move the ball? Does he like a long hand pass? What do you need to do? And that allows you to wait or allows you to move.
Excellent, Andy. Great tips there for the boys. Just a few more, because again, conscious of time, but just one question. How did you prepare for match day? Like, what was your lead into it, or in terms of the day before, maybe the day off?
No, my lead in, particularly when I was older, was the whole week. I had to plan whole week. I got to the stage in training where I got to the place where I actually didn't mind if my man cleaned me in the A versus B the week before, because I just one specific thing. So if I was marking Barry Owens from Fermanagh, I would practice exactly how Barry Owens would play. No matter who I was marking, I'd be marking Barry Owens on the week before. Okay, so that'd be the first part of it. So I'd make the same run, even if Keelan Crowe was marking me. He used to clean me every week. Even if he was marking me, I would play him like if it was Barry Owens. Does that make sense? So that's what I do the week out, and then every day then would be scheduled right into the match. I'd know on about Wednesday or Thursday, I would get incredibly nervous, be overthinking the game, and by the time I was in my 30s, I actually knew that I'd be overthinking the game. So it was easier for me to kind of think about that. And then I used to really get a lovely sense of relief when we used to get on the bus on a Saturday morning. Now we were moving, and then I'd start relaxing. And then on the Saturday night, we'd go for a little kick around. Love that side of it. I would have the exact same food the whole way in, because my stomach mightn't be great. So I'd have to have the exact same food the whole way in, the exact same amount of water, the exact same playlist. All the things I could control, I used to keep them as similar as I can. And I used to just nice and steady right through it. For the club scene now, do it very same. And have to be there at the same time. Would have to be, have all the kind of things ready the way I'd like to have them ready. But again, I can control every single one of them things. So not worrying about what I can't control, like not worrying about like what is it, like that you have to go to a certain place at a certain time to, superstitions. Never mind about superstitions. Some people have them, that's fine. But create a routine, not a superstition. And my routine was the same every game moving forward. And it's the same every day now for the club as well.
Thanks, Andy. Just a question for myself. Would you have watched much in terms of, you talked there about Barry Owens or the week before looking at players? I know it might seem silly, but would you have watched much football? I've talked to more footballers over the years, outside of training that they'd never watch video, or, would it be a big part of your routine watching your teammates on video or watching who you come up against?
Yeah, I would. What I would do is I wouldn't watch a full game. I would have the game recorded, and I would literally specifically pick what my man would do, and I would do one or two things where he might be weak. There's nothing worse than going in marking a guy and thinking, right, he's going to mark me fundamentally from the side like most defenders does, and then he marks me 10 yards in front. There's nothing worse than that. So what are we looking at here? There's a guy here 10 yards in front of me. If you know that before you go in, then you're training the week before. You can prepare for that bit of, you can prepare for that. And that makes it so much easier, because in your mindset, someone's going to play 10 yards in front of you. How do you play 10 yards? If you have a good relationship with the fellow that marks you at training, you might even say to him, 10 minutes here, will you go out in front of me here and mark me 10 yards in front of me, And it makes it so much easier. So I would be obsessive tape watching, but nothing the week of the game. I'd have it all done by Sunday the week before if I can. And then if I can't. If it's week on week, I'd have it all done by the Wednesday before the Wednesday night training session, that thing, because there's no point watching tape if you can't practice what you need to do. But I'd watch a lot of football. I'd watch too much football, to be honest.
That's not the worst thing. Not the worst thing. Andy, just the last couple. Jack wants to know, who's the toughest player, the hardest player you've played against, and why?
Yeah, well, listen, there's many tough players. Like our own, I've mentioned them there a few times, but the two guys, Lee and Keith from Mayo, massive. Like the physicality of them, it was just like the physicality of Keegan was something I never experienced on a football field when he was in that 16, 17 time. He was just incredible at training. Like, and like people seeing the Diarmuid Connolly and the Kieran Kilkennys and them performances, he used to torture us at training. Like, do you know what I'm saying? If you were put on Keegan, you were just like, oh, you know, I might make the team next week. Do you know, this was every night. Do you know, it wasn't. Joe, he was just an incredible player. So they were right up there. I marked Sean Marty Lockhart in 2007. Sean Marty, probably, I don't know his age, but probably coming near the end of his career at that stage. Probably had 3 or 4 years left in him. Gave me a bit of a schooling, didn't play well. A bit of it was down to myself, but I used to rely on my kind of physical power a lot to mark fellas. Sean Marty was a bit stronger than me, unfortunately, you know. So Sean Marty was good. Carl Lacey, Donegal lads, just brilliant. But again, could damage you so much if you didn't have somebody that could help you going back the pitch. Like Lacey would kill you. I remember playing a Railway Cup game, lads. It was probably around 2008, 2009. I played wing forward. The day, and I was marking somebody, I won't mention his name, but Cassidy was switched on me after 15 minutes. Kevin Casson. I was lucky enough to play with Kevin Casson, Sligo IT. He was some player, lads. He was something else. Like he was just exceptional. Like his movement off the ball to receive a pass, even. Never mind the defending side of it. His movement off the ball to receive a pass and to give it a right and left foot. His work rate was incredible. And then I have to mention Mick Fitzsimons. I'll tell you, lads, Mick Fitzsimons is a great lesson for any guys. When I was getting older, I could feel my physical strength coming down where Fitzsimons was going this way. And we met at the crossroads once or twice where we had great battles. But by the time we finished, he was just like, you're on about guys. You're on about a fella now that has put in the work. Oh, he's put in serious work. Like his rate of development from 2012 to now, and the player he's turned out to be, he's just an incredible player. And then I was lucky enough to mark Mark O'Shea, Tom Sullivan, and them guys, just all incredible players, all different, and all could do different stuff. Fitzsimons just as a stopper, brilliant. Higgins and Mark O'Shea and Lacey, you could score 2 points in them guys, and they could get man of the match because they could just do so much damage going the other way.
Thanks, Andy. I suppose all them were challenges that ultimately helped you be the player you ended up being, like, I suppose.
I learned more of Sean Marty Lockhart, I think, in that 70 minutes of football than I learned off any other footballer on the pitch.
Unreal. Just last few, when you were taking on the big scores, were you just in the zone? Were you not thinking about it? Did you just have always that confidence to take them on? One of the coaches wants to know.
I'm not a scorer. Yeah, I'm not a natural scorer. Like my game, I went from a playmaker to a scorer. My job was to win the ball, release runners, and get the team high up the field to win the ball. Like the scoring came later for me. The scoring came post-injury where I wasn't as good at my other jobs that I had to add something else. So I had to practice right through. So the scoring came. So it's absolutely, lads, was never a natural thing for me. As I said, some people, like the likes of Gooch and these guys, could just literally score at ease. But then other fellas had to work so hard at it. And I was one of the guys that had to like bring that into my game, even develop a mentality where at stages you got into being a bit greedy, from being the fella that always gave the ball to being a fella that was a bit greedy, because you had to change your mentality because you knew when you got to the big game, you were going to have to take on one or two of those shots. So, yeah, so it's definitely a learned skill for me. Some fellas maybe have that natural instinct to get it over, but for me personally, it was a completely learned skill.
Thanks, Andy. Look, Andy, again, conscious of time, you're going there for an hour and 15. There's been brilliant stuff there. If Owen and Teresa want to say anything or ask anything, but that's been first class, Andy. And what's really the thing I'll take away tonight, which was brilliant, was one of your role models when you were younger was Ollie Murphy. Good Fermanagh man and Canolly man, which is great, I tell you. So I'm happy out. Owen or Teresa?
But just before Owen and Teresa comes in, lads,
yes.
There's a huge emphasis now on strength and conditioning, okay? And lads, the skills of the game are in no matter what game you play, no matter if it's tennis, golf, whatever, soccer, rugby, the skills of the game will still get you to where you need to go. Strength and conditioning is an aid to get you there. So if you're a bit lighter and you need to put in the likes of myself, Owen, and these guys can help you in that regard. But it's an aid to keep you injury-free and to keep you strong enough to play the game. The skills of the game and getting to the pitch. I go by our clubhouse, lads. Okay? So COVID has been brilliant in one way for our club, because I go by our clubhouse because my mother-in-law lives out there. So I go out there quite a bit. And the lights of the clubhouse are always on. This was driving me mad for years. But now the lights of the pitch are back on. The lights of the pitch are what win you games. The clubhouse and the gym will help you. But the pitch is what wins you the games. The pitch is what makes you kick the score. And the pitch is what gives you the confidence to go and be a better footballer.
Oh, it's brilliant. Totally agree with you. As I always tell the lads, it's everything we do in the gym is to make you that much bit better out in the pitch. But ultimately, out in the pitch is where you want to be. The big one that I always, I suppose I wanted to ask you was, in terms of that mindset, especially like losing All Irelands, especially losing a couple All Irelands, and myself, we lost 2 county championships before we actually won our first one. How do you pick yourself up, or how did you find even the atmosphere at training? How did you get everybody together again after such disappointment and raise the boys up again?
Yeah, the first time personally I felt it was gone was 2017, if I'm being honest. That was the one I found tough. I thought we excelled. I thought we played the best game we ever played in the final. The likes of Aidan O'Shea, these guys were exceptional the day. Leroy, obviously, with the goal and keeping Kilkenny quiet. I just thought we played really well. We scored 116. I always think the target to have any chance against the double was 20 points, but we get to 19. So we did an awful lot of things well that day. And that was the one I remember going back into the room in the City West and meeting my wife and my little girl and just thinking, okay, right, that might be it gone now. But up to that point, I never believed it. Like it was 2004, 2006, we weren't good enough. 2004, we did genius playing for us in McDonald. Joe, like McDonald didn't join the panel until after the first championship game, and he comes in and probably, Joe, I think he was a bit harshly done not winning Footballer of the Year that year. He was absolutely exceptional, and he put us on our back. We weren't that good, and he was just brilliant. 2006, Mickey and John came down, did a great job with us. We won one big game in the Dublin semi-final, so we weren't good enough. So they weren't really them ones where you'd be on your hands and knees devastated. As the years went on in 12, 13, and 16 and 17, they were devastating losses, but we always thought we were improving on. We always thought we were showing enough improvement to go again and to see it. And what people don't realise, and we're very, very, we're unbelievably fortunate in Mayo. Unbelievably fortunate in Mayo. We're so well supported. It's actually ridiculous. Like, to be honest with you, Fermanagh are like one of the teams. Fermanagh, Tyrone. There's only a few counties around that could say that the element of support that Mayo have per population, and we're so well supported. It like you couldn't during them times if Mayo people thought you were doing your best. and given absolutely everything, they backed you to the hilt. So it made it very easy to come back. Like it was the one time I'd actually say we were at one kind of as a whole county trying to get this massive push on. So it never felt like it was over. Like, I'll give you an example. That wasn't always the case. We came out of a Leitrim game in 2006 and we were walking from the pitch, Sean McDermott, up to the Bush Hotel to get a bit of food. And like, there was people shouting at us, they were a disgrace. You know, it wasn't always the case. But Mayo people, like every other people, if you're doing your best and you're absolutely putting everything in, I think there's an element of, okay, let's go again, let's do it. And I remember a trip when you get to an All-Ireland final, you get a holiday out of it. And we went to South Africa between 16 and 17. And lads, we put in, no managers there, we put in a week of training that you've never seen. Like, it was just incredible. And when we came back, we just thought, come on, we'll give this another rattle. Let's see how we go. And that was it. And sure, it was just that we always seen a bit of an improvement and we thought we had a chance. And maybe after 17, maybe I felt maybe that was the time where maybe the chance was gone, you know?
No, very good. Easy, yeah.
I'll maybe finish just on maybe a bit of advice to that for the young players or even maybe the coaches online, just on how they can make themselves better. What bit of advice have you maybe picked up over the years on trying to improve and develop yourself?
Well, I always think, right, before we go into the skill side of it, I always think if you're looking out for somebody away from yourself, you're improving as an individual straight away. It sounds kind of very American and very kind of, life coachy sort of stuff, but it absolutely helps. Within a team environment, if you have a goal within the goal, so if your goal is to go and make the Fermanagh panel, but you're trying to bring somebody with you to make it as well, you've nearly developed a bit of a unity with somebody and a friendship, but you've also developed a kind of where the two of you can strive for the same goal. And I think it's huge. I think it's a huge thing. And if everyone did that within the team, all of a sudden you'd have little kind of sub-teams within the team and it'd make it all stronger. So always try to help somebody else out. Always be thanking coaches. I had a coach when I was in minor, and Tracy, you mentioned to me about mindset. His name was JP Kane. And he produced more senior footballers from Mayo than anybody else. Great guy, but sure, I hated the sight of him, right? And not out of anything, just because where I came from, our town is in Roscommon. I was thinking, like, people were telling me in the town, he's not picking you because of where you're from. He wasn't picking me because I wasn't fit and I wasn't good enough. My attitude stank. Do you know? That's the truth. And it was only 10 years later or 15 years later I met the man. And we had a great old chat. I said, listen, I want to thank you for all that you did for me, because when the light actually hit me, I was like, geez, he did great work. You know, so be thanking your coaches. Remember, they're there for the good of you, and bring someone else along with you. Skill-wise, guys, honestly, it is the number one. And I don't mean everyone is so obsessed with working on your bad foot and working on your bad hand. Work on your bloody good foot. If you make your good foot so good, do you know, there's very few people that can stop that. Yes, have a good foot, have a bad foot that you can use, and it's excellent. But very few of us get to the level where Clifford is at, or Stevie O'Neill was at, or Colin Gooch Cooper, where they're 2 feet of equal ability. Like, my left foot, it was decent, it was accurate, but it was 21 yards out, and that was the max I had on it. But it was there that I could turn onto when I needed it. But you make my side was my right side. I just try to make it as strong and as accurate as I could do it. And then the last bit of advice I'd say is just on that visualization stuff. I remember Packy Bonner saving the goal in 1990. And it was one of my first childhood memories. And I remember being outside my house, and I lived in a council estate, and doing the penalty from O'Leary and being Packy Bonner for ages. That's visualization. And when we get older, we think this is daft. But it's actually so powerful. It is so powerful what you could do. So if you're 14, 15, 16 there, start drawing out little matchstick men on your page and say, where do I need to move? And away you go. And then when you come to training, it'll be in your mindset. You won't even have to think about it. You'll do it, and then you'll go, how did I do that? And then you go, I thought about it. And it might be just writing down on a piece of paper, I want to turn, instead of, when we win the ball to this side and we want to turn out on our right to take the shot, maybe it's turn in on the left. And instead of taking a shot for a point, all of a sudden you're in on goal 1-on-1. So it's little things like that. So 1, visualization, dream about it, away you go. 2, bring somebody with you. And what was the third one I said? Or the second one? Oh, thank your coaches. Absolutely thank your coaches. If there was one thing I would love to change my life, is literally to go back and after every session just go, geez, Owen, Sean, Teresa, thanks very much. It was, Joe, that was brilliant. Because do you know something? They're there out as good as their health. I'm doing it now. It's a lovely thing to do. And I've been fortunate enough that most of the people that I needed to thank before the passed on were still there and I could go and do it. But I think it's such a powerful thing to do. And from somebody that was gifted with coaches around the town, I think it's a really good habit as a young kid to get into.
Thanks, Andy. Look, Andy, you've been going now a good hour and a half. Fair play to you. We really appreciate that. Lots and lots of good stuff. And I suppose, especially with the time that's in it, Andy, with, I suppose, all negativity and everything that's going on, what I'll take out of it is just your enthusiasm, your positivity. And look, if that's the only thing the boys take away tonight, your love of the game, Jesus, it's been definitely a worthwhile activity. But there's so much there our boys will build upon. Will hopefully have took lots of notes. I know they're great at taking notes there. So look, from all in Fermanagh GA, Andy, I really, really appreciate you giving up your time. Because it was first class there. I can't thank you enough for it. But maybe when the lockdowns are over, if you were able to get up or take a session down the line, maybe not this year, but in the next number of years, look, we'd be delighted to have you, Andy.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, Sean. It'd be an honour. And lads, thanks so much for listening to me for an hour and a half. It's not hard. And thanks, John, again, a company. I really, really, really appreciate it. And thanks a million for the invite, guys. And if there's anything ever you need, you know.